The Forgotten Battalion. The mining colony on Kepler 442b had been dead for 3 years, or so everyone thought. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her gloved hand against the frosted observation window, watching the abandoned structures below through the swirling dust storms that never seemed to end on this forsaken rock. Her ragtag squad of survivors had been hiding here for 6 months now, forgotten by both sides of a war that had supposedly ended 2 years ago. Nobody had bothered to tell them the war was over. Nobody had come to collect them. They were ghosts, living on borrowed time and dwindling supplies. "Captain, we've got movement on the eastern ridge," announced Corporal Jake Martinez, his voice crackling through the comm system. The young soldier from Texas had lost his left arm in the Battle of Proxima Station, but had refused medical discharge. Now he operated their makeshift surveillance system with remarkable efficiency, despite his disability. Sarah turned from the window, her weathered face showing the strain of extended combat deployment. At 35, she felt twice that age. The war had taken its toll on all of them, human and alien alike. Yes, alien. Her squad was unique in that regard, a testament to desperate times when survival trumped politics. "How many?" she asked, moving toward the command console where Martinez sat hunched over multiple screens. 3 signatures moving slow. Could be scavengers, but... He paused, enhancing the thermal imaging. "They're using tactical formation. Military." Standing beside Martinez was Zektar, their Rillan scout. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the blue glow of the monitors, as his forearms danced across a separate keyboard, cross-referencing the movement patterns. The Rillan had been their prisoner initially, captured during a raid on a supply depot. But when the supply ships stopped coming and the comm channels went dark, prisoner and captors had become something else entirely. Survivors. Not human movement patterns. Zektar clicked in his peculiar accent, his mandibles creating a percussion beneath the words. Too fluid. My people perhaps, or... He paused, antennae twitching with concern. Vorthak. The room tensed at the mention of the Vorthak. They were the reason this war had started, the mysterious aggressors who had attacked human and Rillan colonies alike before vanishing into the cosmic void. Both species had blamed each other initially, leading to a devastating conflict that had cost millions of lives before they realized they'd been played. Sarah grabbed her rifle, checking the charge indicator. Only 40% power remaining, and no way to properly recharge it. They'd been running on fumes for weeks now. Wake the others. Quiet protocol. Within minutes, her entire squad had assembled in the main hall. 8 humans, 3 Rillans, and surprisingly, 2 Vorthak deserters who had sought asylum with them just a month ago. The Vorthak twins, as everyone called them, despite them looking nothing alike, stood apart from the others. Their gray, elongated forms seemed to absorb light, and their large black eyes rarely blinked. "Listen up," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying the authority that had kept this unlikely group together. "We've got unknowns approaching from the east. Could be friendlies, could be hostiles. Either way, we follow protocol. Thompson and Nakamura, take the high ground. Zektar, you're with me. Martinez, keep those sensors running. And you two," she looked at the Vorthak. "I need you to tell me if these are your people." The taller Vorthak, who had taken the human name Victor, stepped forward. His voice was like whispered silk when he spoke. "Captain Chen, if these are Vorthak remnant forces, they will not be friendly. The remnant does not recognize deserters as anything but targets." "Then we make sure they don't get close enough to recognize anyone," Sarah replied grimly. The squad moved with practiced efficiency, taking positions throughout the colony's defensive perimeter. The years of conflict had taught them to work as one unit, regardless of species. Private Lisa Thompson, barely 22, had become their best sniper despite her initial terror of the Rillans. Now she shared ammunition with Rikika, a Rillan warrior who had taught her how to read wind patterns in alien atmospheres. As Sarah and Zektar reached the observation post, the scout's antennae suddenly went rigid. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission. It's unusual." "Put it through," Sarah ordered, adjusting her earpiece. The signal was weak, distorted by distance and the planet's electromagnetic storms. But underneath the static there was a pattern. Not Morse code, not any military encryption she recognized. It was almost musical. "That's old Vorthak." Victor's voice came through the comm, tinged with something Sarah had never heard from him before. Fear. "It's a funeral dirge. They sing it when When they know they're going to die. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Martinez, expand the sensor sweep. How many are we really looking at? There was a pause before Martinez responded, his voice tight. Captain, I'm reading at least 30 signatures now, all converging on our position from different directions. But that's not the weird part. There's something else out there, something big, and it's pushing them toward us. Define big, Corporal. I can't, ma'am. The sensors can't properly read it. It's like it's there and not there at the same time. But whatever it is, these Vorthak aren't hunting. They're running. Sarah's mind raced. 30 Vorthak soldiers, even damaged and frightened ones, were more than her depleted squad could handle in a direct fight. But if something was hunting them, something that scared the most feared warriors in known space. Captain. Zektar's compound eyes suddenly focused on something in the distance. They're not using tactical formation to attack. They're using it to retreat efficiently. Look. Through her scope, Sarah could see them now. Vorthak soldiers, their usually pristine armor cracked and scorched, moving in coordinated groups but constantly checking behind them. One stumbled and 2 others immediately grabbed him, dragging him forward without breaking stride. This wasn't an assault force. This was a exodus. Thompson, Nakamura, hold your fire, Sarah commanded. Let them approach but keep them in your sights. Captain, are you insane? Nakamura's voice crackled over the comm. 30 Vorthak are running scared from something, Private. I want to know what could terrify them that badly before we make any hostile moves. The lead group of Vorthak had reached the outer perimeter of the colony. They moved cautiously but not aggressively, their weapons lowered but ready. Sarah could see their leader now. A scarred veteran whose armor bore the markings of a high commander. He was looking directly at their hidden positions. Humans, the Vorthak commander called out in accented but clear English. We know you are there. We seek a parley. Sarah exchanged glances with Zektar. The insectoid's head tilted. A gesture she'd learned meant confusion. Vorthak didn't parley. They conquered or they died. Victor, Diana. Sarah spoke into her comm, using the names the Vorthak twins had chosen. I need you up here. Now. Within moments, the 2 deserters had joined her at the observation post. Victor's large eyes widened as he saw the commander below. That's General Thaxivor. He led the assault on New Singapore. He's responsible for millions of deaths. And now he's asking for parley, Sarah muttered. Diana, what's your read? The shorter Vorthak female focused intently on the group below. Her psychic abilities, though limited, could sometimes sense intent. Terror, she whispered. Absolute terror and shame? They're ashamed of something. Before Sarah could respond, General Thaxivor spoke again. We are not here to fight. The war was a lie. We were all deceived. And now the Devourers have come to collect their prize. Please, we must work together or none of us will survive what's coming. Devourers? Zektar clicked nervously. What are Devourers? It was Diana who answered, her voice hollow. Legends. Stories told to young Vorthak to make them behave. Beings that exist between dimensions, feeding on conflict and death. They orchestrate wars, feast on the psychic energy of suffering. And when the harvest is ready, she trailed off. They come to feed directly, Victor finished. Sarah's pragmatic human mind wanted to reject such fantastic claims. But she'd seen too much in this war to dismiss anything outright. Martinez, how long until that big signature reaches us? At current speed, maybe 2 hours, Captain. But it's accelerating. Sarah made a decision that would have gotten her court-martialed in the old days. But these weren't the old days. These were the days of survival. Open the gates, she commanded. Let them in. But they surrender their weapons at the entrance, Captain. Several voices protested at once. That's an order, Sarah said firmly. If we're all going to die anyway, I'd rather die learning the truth than wondering about it. The next 30 minutes were some of the tensest in Sarah's military career. The Vorthak forces entered the colony slowly, laying down their weapons as requested. Up close, she could see how badly damaged they were. Whatever they'd been fighting, it had hurt them severely. Several were carrying wounded, and she was surprised to see 2 young Vorthak, barely adults by their species standards, clutching what appeared to be civilian children. General Thaxivor approached her position, his movements careful and non-threatening. When he removed his helmet, Sarah saw a face marked not just by scars but by exhaustion and something else. Regret. Captain Chen, he said, and she was surprised he knew her name. I know our species have been enemies. I know the blood between us runs deep, but we were all pawns in something larger. The entity you call the Devourers, we call them the Hunger. They've been manipulating our species for generations, seeding conflicts, feeding on our violence. And you just figured this out? Sarah asked, unable to keep the skepticism from her voice. No, Thaxivore admitted. Some of us have suspected for years, but we were influenced, pushed toward aggression whenever we began to question. It was only when the psychic dampeners on our homeworld failed that we saw clearly. By then it was too late. The Hunger had already marked this sector for harvesting. Zektar stepped forward, his warrior instincts barely contained. You expect us to believe that your entire species was mind-controlled into genocide? Not controlled, Victor interjected, surprising everyone. Influenced. Pushed. Like having an intrusive thought that seems like your own idea. The Vorthak are naturally psychic. It made us perfect targets for manipulation. General Thaxivore looked at the deserter with something approaching respect. You broke free early. That takes incredible will. Or incredible love, Diana said quietly, glancing at Victor. We found something worth fighting the influence for. Sarah's tactical mind was already working through the implications. If this was true, if they were facing some kind of interdimensional predator that fed on conflict, then their little colony was about to become ground zero for something far worse than the war. How do we fight them? She asked bluntly. These Devourers, the Hunger, whatever they are. How do we kill them? Thaxivore's expression grew even more grim. We don't. In all our histories and all the records we've found from dead civilizations, no one has ever successfully fought them off. They come, they feed, and they leave nothing but empty worlds behind. Then why run here? Martinez asked over the comm. Why lead them to us? We didn't, Thaxivore replied. They were already coming here. This world, this colony, it's built on an ancient site. We found records in the ruins beneath our last stronghold. This place was marked long before humans or Vorthak ever reached the stars. The colony you've been hiding in isn't a mining facility. It's bait, united. We stand, the revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. Sarah felt the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders as she stood in the colony's command center, now crowded with an impossible alliance of humans, Rillans, and Vorthak. The holographic display in the center showed the approaching anomaly, a writhing mass of something that hurt to look at directly, defying three-dimensional representation. So we're sitting on a trap that was set before any of our species even existed, Sarah summarized, her voice steady despite the insanity of the situation. And these Devourers are coming to spring it. General Thaxivore nodded gravely. The pattern is consistent across dozens of dead worlds we've cataloged. They seed locations with technology, resources that developing civilizations will eventually find irresistible. Then they wait, sometimes for millennia, for enough psychic energy to accumulate. Psychic energy from conflict, Zektar added, his analytical mind processing the information. The war, the deaths, the suffering. It all happened here in this system. We've been charging their battery. Private Thompson spoke up from her guard position, her young voice carrying over the comm. So what, we just roll over and die? That's not very human of us, Captain. Despite everything, Sarah found herself smiling slightly. No, it's not. And I don't think it's very Rillan or Vorthak either. She turned to address the room. Every species here has survived extinction-level threats before. Humans crawled out of ice ages and plagues. The Rillan survived the death of their homeworld's sun. And the Vorthak. She looked at Thaxivore. You survived the psychic wars that killed 90% of your population. But this is different, Thaxivore protested. The Hunger exists partially outside our dimension. Our weapons can't work the way they're designed to, Diana interrupted, stepping forward. The young Vorthak female's eyes were bright with sudden inspiration. But Captain Chen is right. We've all survived impossible odds by adapting, by finding new solutions. Victor joined his companion, his elongated fingers dancing through the holographic display. The records from dead civilizations all show the same thing. They fought the Devourers with conventional weapons or with psychic attacks. But what if we could combine them? What if we could create a harmonic frequency that bridges the dimensional gap? Martinez wheeled his chair over, his one good hand flying across his keyboard. You're talking about using our weapons to create a resonance pattern? That's actually not impossible. The mining equipment here includes sonic drills designed to find mineral deposits through dimensional scanning. And Rillan crystalline technology naturally resonates across dimensions, Rikika added, producing a small crystal from her armor. We use them for faster-than-light communication. Sarah watched as her impossible squad began working together with their former enemies, the immediate threat overshadowing years of conflict. Engineers from all three species huddled around terminals, sharing knowledge that had been military secrets just days ago. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, she thought. It had taken the potential end of everything to make them see what they could accomplish together. "Captain," Nakamura called from his position. "That thing is speeding up. Estimated arrival now under 90 minutes. Then we have 90 minutes to become miracle workers," Sarah announced. "Thompson, Nakamura, I want you to start moving all non-combatants to the deepest levels of the colony. If we fail, maybe the rock will buy them some time. Zektar, coordinate with the Rillan warriors on crystal placement. We need resonance points throughout the colony. General Thaxivor, I need your psychics to create a mental map of this thing. Find its weak points if it has any." The general looked at her with something approaching admiration. "You truly believe we can fight this?" "I believe we don't have a choice but to try," Sarah replied. "And humans have a saying, General. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Right now we're all dogs and we're cornered. That makes us dangerous." The next hour was controlled chaos. The sonic mining equipment was hastily reconfigured, creating a network of emitters throughout the colony. Rillan crystals were integrated into the system, their natural harmonics amplified by human ingenuity and Vorthak's psychic focusing techniques. It was technology born of desperation, held together by determination and not a small amount of what Martinez called percussive maintenance. As the entity approached, its effects became noticeable. The air grew thick, oppressive. Several of the more psychically sensitive individuals collapsed, blood running from their noses as their minds were assaulted by waves of alien hunger. The lights flickered, reality itself seeming to hiccup as the devourer pressed against the dimensional boundary. "It's here," Diana gasped, supported by Victor as she struggled to maintain her psychic shields. "It's so hungry. It's been waiting so long." Through the observation windows, they could see it now. The devourer defied description. A mass of writhing darkness punctuated by glimpses of things that shouldn't exist. Eyes that weren't eyes, mouths that opened into nowhere, tentacles that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could process. It surrounded the colony like a fog, probing for weaknesses. "All units prepare to fire on my mark," Sarah commanded, her hand hovering over the activation switch for their improvised weapon. "Remember, we need to maintain the frequency for at least 30 seconds for it to work. That means no matter what happens, no matter what we see or feel, we keep firing." The devourer found an entry point, phase shifting through the eastern wall. Several Vorthak soldiers screamed as it touched their minds, showing them visions of every fear they'd ever had, every loss they'd ever suffered. Two humans dropped their weapons, clawing at their eyes as reality twisted around them. "Now!" Sarah slammed the activation switch. The colony erupted in a cacophony of sound and light. The sonic emitters screamed their modified frequency, while the Rillan crystals blazed with interdimensional energy. Every weapon in the colony fired in perfect synchronization, their energy beams modified to carry the harmonic pattern. The combined assault hit the devourer like a physical blow. For the first time in recorded history, a devourer screamed. The sound wasn't heard so much as felt, a psychic wail that brought everyone to their knees. But they kept firing. Thompson, blood streaming from her ears, kept her rifle steady. General Thaxivor, his psychic abilities turning the attack against him, maintained his focus on directing his people. Zektar, his compound eyes cracked from the pressure, continued adjusting the crystal harmonics. The devourer writhed, its form becoming more solid as the dimensional walls around it strengthened. For the first time, it was truly in their dimension, truly vulnerable, but that also made it more dangerous. Tentacles lashed out, passing through walls as if they didn't exist, wrapping around soldiers and draining them of life in seconds. "Hold the line!" Sarah shouted, though she could barely hear herself over the chaos. 30 seconds. Private Nakamura went down, a tentacle through his chest, but Martinez grabbed his weapon and continued firing. A group of Rillan warriors formed a protective circle around their crystal array, dying one by one but never breaking formation. Vorthak psychics linked minds, sharing the mental load as the devourer's psychic attacks intensified. 20 seconds, 15, 10. The devourer was weakening, its form beginning to fragment. It tried to retreat, to phase back into its dimension. But the harmonic frequency had created a cage of sorts, trapping it in three-dimensional space. For the first time in its ancient existence, it knew fear. 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1. With a final, reality-shaking shriek, the devourer imploded. The release of energy knocked everyone flat, shattering windows and cracking walls. For a moment, there was absolute silence. The absence of sound so complete it was almost painful. Then slowly, survivors began to stir. Sarah pushed herself up, her entire body aching. Around her, humans, Rillans, and Vorthak were doing the same, looking at each other with stunned disbelief. "Did we?" Thompson started, then stopped, unable to finish the question. "Scanner's clear," Martinez reported, his voice hoarse. "That thing, whatever it was, it's gone. Really gone." General Thaxfor stood slowly, his armor cracked and sparking. He looked around the room at the mixed species who had fought together, died together, and somehow impossibly won together. "We did it," he said, wonder in his voice. "We actually did it." Sarah walked over to the Vorthak general, extending her hand. After a moment's hesitation, he took it, his larger hand engulfing hers. "Seems like we make a pretty good team when we're not trying to kill each other," she said. "Perhaps," Thaxivor replied slowly. "That was the lesson we were meant to learn. The devourers fed on our conflicts, but together, united, we were stronger than they anticipated." "The question is," Zektar interjected, approaching them, "what do we do now? The war is over, but our governments don't even know we're alive. And if there are more of these devourers out there?" Sarah looked around the room at her squad, at their former enemies who had become allies, at the unlikely family they'd all become. "We survive," she said simply. "We take what we've learned here and we make sure our species never fall for this trap again. And if more devourers come, we'll be ready," Diana finished, standing with Victor's support. "All of us, together." Martinez had managed to get the long-range communications array partially functional. Within hours, their story would reach the remnants of their respective governments. There would be disbelief, investigations, probably courts-martial for some of them. But there would also be hope. Hope that the cycle of conflict could be broken, that the manipulation they'd suffered under could be overcome. As the sun set over the dusty plains of Kepler 442b, casting long shadows through the broken windows of the colony, Sarah found herself standing beside General Thaxivor and Zektar, watching their mixed groups of soldiers working together to treat the wounded and repair the damage. "You know," she said quietly, "when I woke up this morning, I thought we were all going to die forgotten on this rock. Now we might have just saved the galaxy." "Not saved," Thaxivor corrected gently. "Given it a chance. The devourers have been playing this game for eons. There will be others. Then we'll teach others what we learned," Zektar added, his antennae twitching with determination. "That unity is stronger than division, that together we can face anything." Sarah nodded, thinking of all the lives lost in their manufactured war, all the pain and suffering that had fed the devourers' hunger. It would take generations to heal those wounds, but today, in this moment, they'd proven it was possible. A human captain, a Vorthak general, and a Rillan scout standing together as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. "The strays of war," Sarah murmured, remembering how she'd thought of them all just hours ago. "Abandoned, forgotten, left to die. But we found each other. We found a way. And now," General Thaxivor said, something almost like a smile crossing his alien features, "we find our way home. All of us. Together." As the first rescue ships appeared on the horizon 3 days later, they found something unprecedented, a colony defended by all species working as one. The story of the Forgotten Battalion, as they would come to be known, would spread across the galaxy, inspiring a new age of cooperation. The war monuments would be replaced with memorials to unity, and the name Kepler 442b would become synonymous, not with the last battle of the war, but with the first victory of peace. But for Captain Sarah Chen and her impossible squad, they would always remember it as the place where enemies became family, where the strays of war found their purpose, and where humanity's greatest strength, their ability to bring others together in the darkest of times, shone brightest of all. The universe was vast, dark, and full of terrors, but as Sarah had learned, it was also full of allies waiting to be found, hands waiting to be clasped, and fights waiting to be fought side by side. And that, she thought as she watched her mixed-species squad preparing for evacuation, was the most human thing of all. Not the ability to fight, but the ability to make others want to fight alongside them. The strays of war had found their pack, and together, they would face whatever the universe threw at them next.